Hi, and welcome to the Financial Modeling Podcast. In Season 4, we explore what makes good financial modelers great. The ability to tell a story, being able to model legal nuances, using the financial model as an effective negotiating tool to close deals. These are just some of the skills we reveal as what you need to know to become a master financial modeler. Season 4 of the Financial Modeling Podcast is sponsored by Full Stack Modeler. Your journey into the future of financial modeling starts here.
Hello, Danielle, and
Hello.
welcome to the live feed.
We are live. Fantastic. What an incredible event this is.
It's absolutely awesome. You know, one of my friends who doesn't really work with Excel at all said an Excel summit, do a lot of people attend that? And I actually Googled it and I said, how many Excel users are there worldwide? And there are 750 million users of Excel. Now that's more than double the population of the United States.
That's incredible. I actually heard stats like that. I was just in the main stage, and there was the keynote from Microsoft, and they were talking about statistics like that. So it's really, really amazing. It's Excel has such a broad reach, doesn't it?
I think it was Lance Rubin that said, you know, we woke up and the pandemic hit and we thought that, you know, obviously the world had changed. But if we wake up one morning and Excel's not working, then we'll really see what it means for the world to change.
We'd really be in trouble, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Danielle, I mean, obviously I ran a competition recently on my social media and one of the prizes was your book. And I see a whole lot of them behind you. Why don't you talk to us about your books? Because I know that you've got a few. They're on my bookshelf as well behind me, and it'd be great just to chat about, you know, the books that you've written, why you wrote them. I know you didn't write them to make money, and it's certainly a difficult thing to do. But of course, you know, you're sharing your expertise. The books are available, and they're available on Kindle as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Did I give you a copy of my books when you were in Australia? I think that might.
You gave me a copy of one of them.
Oh, okay. I think maybe the dummies one wasn't out then. So that's actually that's the third edition of Using Excel for Business and Financial Modeling. And the first one was written for Excel 2010. And then when a new version of Excel came out, I had to do it. I think I've got older versions there somewhere behind me. I've kept old versions, and with 2013 version, they put a big now updated for 2013, but you might know that the publishing process takes a very long time. So from the time when I actually submitted the manuscript up until when the book was actually available, 2016 was just about out. So that version was not around very long. So I fairly quickly did this one, and it is hard trying to keep them up to date, and that's why I've done 3 versions of that particular book. And the reason I wrote this one was just because I'd been a trainer for quite a few years already, and I had a whole lot of instructional materials and documents and models and files and things, and I was constantly adding to it. So it really just made sense to put it into a really nice format that I'd be able to, you know, give people when they come on a training course. And that was the idea of it. But it's actually become, I think, more of a handbook, I suppose, for people who want to, you know, learn how to build financial models.
It absolutely is a handbook, and certainly one that I've used, and it's great to actually have that book, you know, with you and be able to scroll through it. And obviously in a live sessions there'll always be some complications, and I'm just getting some messages from Tia. So I just want to message her this quickly so that she can embed us into the Global Excel Summit website, which is quite impressive. I must say, I co-hosted the Financial Modeling Summit with her last year, and the intro was, I think you just clicked a button and you're in the lobby. And this time I clicked a button and suddenly I was in a plane flying over this island and rock music.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It was quite impressive.
Yeah, it's really great.
So I'm just asking if it's possible to embed this link into that. But so I think it's funny, a lot of people think, well, am I still going to use a book? I can kind of Google everything I need to know, and I do Google a lot, and I still find books so exceptionally valuable because there's a story there and there's a process there. And Google's a great reference site, but it will never take you from A to Z. It'll take you can Google Z and then you can Google C, but it'll never teach you step by step, and it's quite difficult to find something like that. And I mean, somebody who loves technology, I love technology. I've got about 6 screens surrounding me and the latest Samsung, AirPod or earbuds, and I'm clearly a tech lover. I work in data analytics. As you can see behind me, I've still got books that I kind of leaf through all the time because it's just so valuable to actually have a book, be able to highlight something, be able to really have the book open in front of you and try it in Excel at the same time. Danielle, I mean, obviously the pandemic has changed things quite a lot. Book sales, have you seen a massive shift towards the Kindle sales of your book, or are people still buying the physical copies?
I don't actually get a lot of information from the publisher about the sales. So I'm actually not really sure. But in terms of people don't buy the books, so generally people just buy them directly from the publisher or from Amazon, really is the easiest way to get hold of them. And I don't always see those numbers very clearly, but we sell them as part of the training packages. And certainly the online training has been loads more popular in the last little while, because what we used to do is I would get on a plane and I would go to run live. I mean, I absolutely love running live sessions, and people would normally we'd give them this book and sometimes they'd get both depending on what the course is, and we would have that as a physical copy. And it was always interesting because we'd ask them, do you want an ebook or do you want a hard copy? And people would we stopped asking after a while because people all wanted hard copies, and it was always so difficult to get the physical copies there. So we'd try and order them from the publisher or something, and it would be like when I went to Saudi, and one of the last trips I did was to South Korea, and being able to actually get the book sent there was quite difficult. So I'd end up just getting them off my shelf and putting them in my suitcase.
In your suitcase and paying for extra baggage at the airport.
Exactly. It was just easier than trying to coordinate with making sure that they arrived on time, because they didn't always, we weren't always able to get them there. So ebooks are a lot easier, lots easier, but people still seem to really like the hard copies.
And yeah, it's weird. I mean, okay, I don't want to harp on it too much, but I mean, even me, I mean, I've got a Kindle and I've got the Kindle app on my iPad, and I use the Kindle app on the web even, and I still love having a hard copy of a book. I don't know, there's just something about it.
Yeah.
So Danielle, plans for the future? You're writing another book in the pipeline?
Not that I don't think so. I haven't got anything in mind, although this one will probably have to get updated. With this one, we were able to sort of write it in such a way that it wasn't really version specific. So that might be right for a little while, but I probably will do another update, I'm sure. Every time I finish writing a book, I say, never again, I'll never do another one. But so I've done it 4 times. I've been through the process 4 times.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It's much more fun actually building a financial model than writing a book. I'm quite a slow writer, I think. It takes me a really long time to write something, and with you would know, like when you're writing a blog article or something like that, the editing process is quite different. Whereas if you're writing instructional text, it's like you select cell A4 and then highlight, this cell to this cell. And of course you get it wrong, like you move a cell or something, and then all throughout the text they're completely wrong. So we have a technical editor that will do all of that. So that's really, really time consuming.
And I was about to ask that because, I've been asked that question as well. When you write a book on Excel, you obviously need an editor for the language. Do you need a technical editor as well, just to make sure that it all makes sense and that's all correct from an Excel perspective?
Yeah, certainly the dummies process was really really very efficient the way that they edit it. So you have an editor who edits it for sense, and they've got a very strict structure about how the dummies sort of, if it's going to be in a dummy series, how it has to be. It's quite Americanized, which is difficult for me, and there's a certain format that you have to follow, which sort of made it easier because you kind of have to fit it into certain things. And then there's a technical editor as well, which is a separate thing.
Awesome, and I can also now confirm that we're showing at the Global Excel Summit, so we're live all over the internet.
Oh, fantastic.
So Danielle, you're talking at the summit. What's your talk on?
Yeah, I'm doing a keynote tomorrow at 10 a.m. around this time on the meetup community, because I run a lot of meetups. Well, used to run a lot of meetups face to face. We don't do that anymore. Matthew, when you were out in Sydney a few years ago, you were one of my guest speakers, so that was fantastic.
When travel was still your biggest concern, traveling was not catching a virus or spreading one.
I can't believe that. Yeah. So we can't do that anymore. So I'm going to be talking about how that has changed, and we're doing virtual meetups at the moment, and just in sort of like the good, bad, and the ugly on the meetup community, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, look, building community is very close to my heart, and I know it's close to yours as well. And it's important to build community for a number of reasons. And I think the communities still exist, but obviously they've shifted online. I know you've set up these Excel meetups though all over the world. I mean, you set up the Joburg one, and then I eventually took it over, and now they're all over the place, right? I mean, they're in New York, London. Alan runs the London one, with obviously I know Tay and Elena's help as well. Are you still connected to the global Excel meetups?
I don't think they're running nobody's running meetups, and I don't know. I know some of them have been online. The London Excel meetup, of course, is the biggest and the most active one through YouTube, which is great. So that's been really good. And there's also Celia Alves, who's also one of the other speakers at the Global Excel Summit. She has the Toronto Excel meetup as well, which is also really active also. So there's quite a few people who are still doing it online, and hopefully we'll get back to doing it face to face at some point.
Absolutely, or at least a blended, which you were a bit ahead of the trend, right? I remember when I spoke at the Sydney one, I was speaking and we were getting questions online, and I was on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and it was you were a few years ahead of the trend there.
Oh, that was funny because I hadn't sort of planned it, and then as soon as you started talking, I thought, nah, this is too good. We've got to go live on this one. So I got my phone out and stuck it up against a beer can, and went live on Facebook, like right there and then. So I think the angle of the camera was not perfect, but yeah, it was really popular. It was such a great talk, and we had lots of live questions coming through that.
It was fun. Talking about live questions, the questions actually just come through to me. And the question for you, Danielle, the person asked is, when the new Excel versions come out, how much editing or re-editing is there of your books? How much does it change?
Yeah, quite a bit. Well, all of the screenshots have to change because the ribbon looks entirely different. And so, if you look at one of the old versions of it, and I open it up and you go, oh my, when you look at the old version of Excel, it just looks really dated. And so, when you open it up, you're like, oh, it's just such an old version of Excel. And so you don't sort of, I just don't think the book has as much credibility anymore when the version of Excel is out of date. And then, of course, it's an opportunity to go through it and go, I'm going to change the way that this example that I've done here, or I can think of a better way perhaps of doing this. And it's an opportunity to go through and update everything. So I basically rewrite the entire thing pretty much, although it is a lot easier going through it the second time than writing it the first time.
Absolutely. And then another question that came in, it's quite an interesting one, I'd never thought of this, is another question that came in asks, how do you decide what you're going to include in the book? Because writing a book in Excel can be never ending. How do you decide what you're going to include in the book?
Yeah. Well, I sort of set it out in chapters, and the funny thing was that with the first book, I almost mirrored it in this because it's just logical. And when I write a training course, it's the same thing. Like it's basically the Excel tools, like there's a foundational, the Excel things, and I always focus on the things you absolutely need to know because there's more than 400 and it's growing. Like every day there's new Excel functions all the time. So there's so many different functions that you can use. So I just focus on the ones that you absolutely need to know for financial modelling. Then we look, and then we jump into financial modelling, which is about tools and techniques. So best practice for financial modelling, standards, do this, don't do that, consistency of formulas, all that sort of stuff that's really important for financial modelling techniques. And then we sort of get into the financy type stuff. And then we do case studies. So like actually try to take some of the Excel tools, but also the finance stuff and put it into a model. And that practical application, I think, is really valuable for people, whether it's in a book or on a training course or however they choose to do it.
Danielle, my final question for you is, and that's really interesting, right? I think a lot of people wonder, well, why is this in the book and not this, or what the case might be? And that's
I know,
tough.
And it is a hard one, and you can't put. I think there's more than 300 pages in that one, and the dummies one was easier because you didn't want to. You sort of had to keep it really, really like. One of the funny things the editor said to me, so I said, when you do a scenario, you could do an if formula, you could use a sum if formula, you could use a lookup, you could use an index match. And I kind of listed all the different options. She's like, no, we don't do that with dummies. It's that we give them one way of doing it, the best way of doing it. And that's the only way we show them. And I'm like, which is good, I suppose. But I found that really difficult because there's so many different ways of doing the same thing. So, yeah.
Optionality is good, but it can sometimes cause confusion.
Yes.
The next question, or the final question I've got for you is this, and it's quite funny. So the person that asked me about the Global Excel Summit, he said, geez, have a Global Excel Summit. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. And I said, well, actually, there's 750 million Excel users. He said to me, he said, and what's the difference between, Excel and Google Sheets? And he actually said to me, aren't they made by the same company? And I said, no, they're actually made by competitors. But he said, he actually finds Excel a lot easier to use than Google Sheets. But a lot of people are obviously moving online. I know Excel's got a big shift online as well. Have you ever thought about writing a book about other spreadsheet tools, Google Sheets, some of the others, the products out there?
Oh, yeah, you could. Someone could, not me. I'm sure there's a market for it. There's so many fantastic topics out there that you could write about. I think this will do me for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact is, Excel is continuously evolving, I should say. And just last week I was showing people at work stocks and the new geographical data types in Excel, which is so cool. I mean, I'm a big nerd, but they're so cool.
When I did the manuscript for this one, I finally did it, and I was a few days before the deadline, and I submitted it, and I was just, thank goodness. Very next day, I woke up, Mr. Excel had tweeted about dynamic arrays had come out. I'm like, stop, we have to do it completely. So they halted it for a minute, and I was able to put dynamic arrays into that book because they're just constantly changing things and bringing out new things all the time. So keeping up to date, I think, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was showing the stock types and the geographic types, or probably the wrong term, but the location types this week to people that really don't work in Excel at all, and they're like, wow, that's so cool. Because I mean, the fact that you can write a share price, Microsoft, bring in the live share price, volatility, right, Johannesburg or Sydney, and of course you bring in population and XY coordinates, all of that is really, really, really useful. And I mean, it's really, I mean, it's fantastic stuff, and it's exciting that they continuously evolve it all the time, because it means the tool's always up to date, always exciting, and you can just build more and more and more and more in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Danielle, thank you so much for joining us on the live stream this morning, and thank you always for being a good friend of the podcast. I think you're actually about the second podcast guest ever. I think episode's number 2. I'm now on episode number 60-something of the Financial Modeling Podcast. You've appeared in a few more.
I was reloading my podcast the other day, and I just had them on autoplay, and I was walking down the road and I hear this Financial Modeling Podcast, and then I hear my own voice. It was one that we'd recorded a few months ago. I already listened to that one. It's always a bit disconcerting when you hear your own voice on a podcast.
Absolutely. Danielle, thank you so much, and enjoy the summit, and good luck for your session.
Thank you. You too.
The world is changing. Financial modeling is no longer just about Excel, and yet Excel modeling skills have never been more valuable. The Full Stack Modeler is an online learning and membership community for finance professionals who are ready to embrace the future. We created Full Stack because we believe that finance professionals need to master Excel, need to master modeling, and need to master all the technologies around Excel, and even that isn't enough. We also need to master the softer skills: communicating, presenting, listening, influencing. Sign up for our short email sequence at fullstackmodeler.com, and you'll get the chance to do a full audit of your modeling skill set and find out if the Full Stack journey might be for you. If it is, use the offer code podcast at checkout to get 10% off your membership.